What's going on, guys? Ghast Station here, giving you the definitive list of the absolute best and worst units in Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia, including all rare and secret unlockable characters in the game. Now, with that out of the way, let's get started. Number 10. Cliff. The worst unit in this game, hands down, is Cliff. Now, before you rage in the comments, hear me out. He has really bad bases, and his only real salvageable stat is his 10 base luck. And while most people would think that a 60% speed growth is actually really useful, the truth is that speed is actually the least important stat in Fire Emblem Echoes. On the flip side, the most important stat in Echoes is fatigue tolerance, a unique mechanic in Echoes which entirely changes the metagame of how we view competitive Echoes play. The rub with Cliff is that he has the lowest fatigue tolerance in the game at 0.4. This is severely detrimental because it means that not only will he become fatigued fastest in the cast, but will suffer from severe HP loss if you don't use provisions in time. This really damages his potential in speedruns because the player will need to spend a lot of time in the menus finding provisions and selecting to use them on this guy. It can end up adding a ton of tedium to his play. For example, look how many times I need to use provisions in the Thief Shrine alone.
Well, it's food. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Are you kidding?
With his awful base speed and unsalvageably terrible fatigue tolerance, he's completely suboptimal to use in low turn counts or speedruns because he takes forever to grind. Taking the number 9 spot is unsurprisingly Mage Cliff, the more worse version of Cliff. While not only more fragile and slower than his normal Cliff counterpart, but his HP draining spells and even worse attack speed will lead to even more difficulty sustaining him during shrine raids. It's also just uncomfortable to use Cliff. I don't want to sound like I'm an armchair physician, but I think his pale skin and white hair is a sign of severe iron deficiency. And I think this also contributes to his terrible fatigue tolerance. And quite frankly, I just feel bad using him. He may even collapse during battle, and I don't want to be responsible for that. Honestly, guys, you should just leave him in Ram Village. Number 8. Faye. Faye is the 8th worst unit in Fire Emblem Heroes. While she is tied for the worst fatigue tolerance with Cliff at 0.4, she's a girl, so I forgive it and we should go easy on her. She's also severely in the friend zone with Alm, and I get that. Aside from the terrible fatigue tolerance, she also learns Again, which is essentially the dance mechanic. But the problem here is that she doesn't actually dance in the animation, which disqualifies her from tournament play. Similarly to Cliff, you should just leave her in Ram Village. Number 7. Noma. Noma is the 7th best unit in Fire Emblem Echoes because he's old and has a beard. He's basically a wizard, and wizards are historically very good in Fire Emblem. He also shines in the greatest story moment of Echoes when he gets lost in Mila's temple, symbolizing his sheer desire to aid those of his junior despite his poor sense of direction. While Dreadfighter Noma is believed to be the greatest reclass option for him, I personally go with Baron Noma, as old-timer Barons are actually the best archetype in Fire Emblem, as you will see later in the list. However, what really puts the icing on the cake and solidifies his number 7 spot is his 0.5 fatigue tolerance. That's very, very solid for an old guy and would explain how Noma ended up in Mila's temple. It shows that Intelligence Systems is capable of tying story and gameplay elements together, which is something they lacked in Fire Emblem Fates. The 6th best unit in Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia is Delphia. While her fatigue tolerance is just a bit worse than Noma's at 0.45, she has great potential to become one of the best units in the game. It's a generally accepted rule that high growth units are better than high base units, which would explain why Nino is the best unit in Fire Emblem Binding Blade. She should be reclassed though. I highly recommend going in the Cavalier line for Gold Knight Delphia because horse movement is much better than the putrid base 4 move from the Mage line. Additionally, she can easily become the best Gold Knight in the game. Indeed, even better than Matilda, who is generally considered to be the best unit in Echoes. She also has a Fang and Luthier as her brother. Number 5. The 5th best unit is Atlas. Unlike Cliff, who has great potential in speed but terrible fatigue tolerance, Atlas has terrible potential in speed but amazing fatigue tolerance at 0.6, making him objectively better. Combined with his great HP base and growth, he's going to be a grinding machine. The less time you spend eating provisions ultimately means quicker final time in speedruns, making him an incredibly viable unit in no matter which class you put him in. What holds him back is his availability and his villager start, however. Number 4. Taking the number 4 spot is Lester. Lester has access to probably the most overpowered skill in the game, Canto. Canto allows Lester to move after attacking, which is just crazy on Alm's route. He completely outclasses Python in every conceivable way. He starts with horses and ends with a staggering 9 move stat. Given the small map size of Echoes, this makes him able to move basically everywhere and perform hit and run tactics almost all the time. However, he's held back by not only being unable to use bows at melee range, but the furthest range he has is 2. Consequently, he has absolutely no enemy phase, as probably no unit is going to fight him at 2 range whatsoever. In terms of fatigue tolerance, it really depends on who Lester's father is, but I'd strongly suggest making it Arden, which modifies his fatigue tolerance to 0.55. You can unlock Lester as a playable unit in Echoes by renaming all of your weapons to the Bester. Then all you need to do is sell all of your bows on Alm and Celica's route. Number 4A. Hannibal. Hannibal is one of the best armor units in the game, because while other barons get access to heavy armor upon promotion, Hannibal's unique class and skill, General and Great Shield respectively, allows him to straight up negate any oncoming attack. Additionally, he has superior fatigue tolerance, as he can constantly battle in the arena, and if he wins, he completely regains his HP. He's also your best bet on getting the most gold marks per fight as well. Additionally, he gains access to unique forges and secret shops. However, a big drawback of him is that he doesn't have any holy blood and he has armor movement. Regardless, he is an incredibly solid and uniquely skilled old guy unit, and like in the case of Noma, is really important to be good at Fire Emblem. You can unlock Hannibal by heading into battle, having Forsyth die in battle, then use all of your stat boosters on Lucas, then head to the Deliverance Shrine and offer all of your exotic spice to Mila. Number 3. Sage Dean. If you thought Sage Atlas was a nuke, wait until you see this. Yeah, at 17 base speed, his attack speed is still 6, but that doesn't even matter because speed is useless anyway. Eventually, he's gonna look like Bane took archery lessons from Artemis herself out there. He also learns Silence at level 5 as a Sage, which makes him twice as fun to use because it can neutralize those pesky canters. What really sets him apart from other mages is his cool victory animation with a staff, edgy dark robes, and fatigue tolerance of 0.6. This guy must have seen some crazy shit out of his only functional eye, because he won't get tired easy at all. While he doesn't learn Excalibur, Cliff does, and he's the worst unit in the game, making Excalibur an objectively bad spell anyway. Sage Dean is also better than Priestess Sonya because she also has Excalibur. Basically what I'm saying is that Dean is the best magic user in the game. Number 3A. Tim Hortons. Timmy Ho-Hos is easily the best support unit in the game, and has a staggeringly high fatigue tolerance of 0.999. In addition, it can create its own provisions and then consume them simultaneously, making this unit virtually impossible to slow down at any point in the campaign. Timmy's is a sustainability machine and has all possible healing spells and provisions needed to get one through to the end game, meaning that a lot of LTCers and speedrunners don't need to bother fetching oranges or mana herbs via exploration. But while its pros are staggering, it does come at a cost. In order to use the provisions it produces, you need to spend gold marks to get them. Additionally, they are region locked to Canadian 3DS consoles and can only be acquired through the Tim Hortons amiibo. In the end, while being an incredible asset to your team when you have it, its availability is extremely exclusive. Number 2. Silk. Silk takes the number 2 spot for a handful of reasons. First of all, Silk is the only unit with access to warp, and she can invoke Dread Fighters at level 18. This is awesome because it makes absolutely no sense, but this is Echoes, so who gives a shit? More importantly, however, she's got a nice booty and she likes to show it off, and I respect that. Shake what the mama gave you, I say. On a more serious note, however, the reason why she has the number 2 spot on this list is because her fatigue tolerance is 0.6, making her the most durable female character in the game. Not only that, she has Nosferatu, meaning the likelihood of her feeling fatigued is slim to none. And I don't need to explain at this point why this is important. Number 2A, Leaf. Leaf is in a tier of his own because of his fatigue tolerance being 1. Yes, 1. This means that he's immune to fatigue in the first place. The reasoning behind this is inexplicable, but Echo's ROM hackers discovered that it was actually a glitch in Gaiden that they decided to keep in the remake. Being impervious to fatigue allows Leaf to fight non-stop. This means that he can basically solo the entire game with just him. If that wasn't enough, he comes with the Light Brand and his class skill Adept, which is basically the lightning sword. So right off the bat, he'll be one-rounding every single enemy he comes across and then some with his skill. Leaf in Echoes is borderline broken. Getting him, on the other hand, is pretty tricky. You need to head to a forge and then inscribe your first 4 swords into Trevant, Did, Nothing, and Wrong, and then soft reset. If done correctly, you can start your campaign in Thracia 776 and then beat the game. And taking the number 1 spot, the absolutely, ultimately, definitively best unit in the entire game is Valbar. This comes at absolutely no surprise because he has the highest fatigue tolerance in the game at 0.65. He's basically a god among men. Now, while Leaf has a fatigue tolerance of 1, Leaf only has 1 chin. Valbar has 2 chins, effectively doubling his greatness. His literal godly chin and mighty fatigue tolerance makes him kind, strong, and mature, while maintaining a boyish innocence. He can listen, but be ready to tell the hard truths when necessary. That's a perfect man. Valbar is perfect.